Okay, so here we have a typical replacement rear caliper for a Proton Gen2. The original caliper is a Bosch caliper. These are clones of the Bosch caliper which are made exactly to the same design as the Bosch. So all the Bosch parts, internals and everything do fit. So years down the line, if you come to recondition the calipers, all the Bosch parts do fit. They're just a lot cheaper than the Bosch to purchase. So economical way of replacing the rear calipers on Proton Gen2. The only unfortunate thing is they normally come without the handbrake plate on the back, or if they do come with the handbrake plate, it's the standard Bosch type handbrake plate which does not fit the Proton. So if you have this plate that doesn't fit the Proton, you're going to have to remove this and fit your old handbrake plate onto the back. The good thing is that these parts don't really wear, so there's no harm in refitting your old handbrake plate onto the back of the brand new caliper. So to show you how to do that, we're just going to move this over to the vise. Clamp it up nice and tight in the vise. It's a 1/2 inch nut on the back of here. Crack that off. Take the nut completely off. Disconnect the spring. We may need to use pliers to do that, or mole grips. This bit should come right off. Sometimes it might need a little tap with the hammer. For this part, we've just got 2 Allen bolts in there. Take them off. Now, as I say, sometimes the calipers are just supplied like that with the nut. Might have these, might not have these, but usually just like that with no handbrake plate on at all. So you have to refit your old Proton handbrake plate. This one comes with the standard Bosch plate, which is no use for the Proton. So again, you still have to swap it. So we'll reverse the process now. Pretend that we're fitting the Proton plate back on. Two Allen bolts. Nip them up. There's a seal on there, so just make sure you don't damage that rubber seal. Here's this part going back onto the splines. This is an extra little bit of footage which I've just edited into this revised version of the video because it came to my attention that this is something quite important that people may have been missing from the original video. This is the handbrake lever, and these are the 2 end stops for the handbrake lever. So at normal rest position it should be touching the first end stop, allowing you all this travel. When you pull on your handbrake, the cables will pull it all the way to this end stop here. So it's very important the way that this lever is positioned on the splines. What you're going to be doing is using the lever from your old Proton caliper, so when you come and fit it back onto the splines, if you just come and slap it on any old place like that, for example, can you see you've already lost half the travel here. So when you pull on your handbrake, it's only going to move to there before it's stopped by this end stop here. Now let's face it, the handbrake on these cars are so poor, even from the factory, that you don't want to be compromising them even further by losing some of the travel. You want to make full use of the maximum available travel. So when you come to fit your lever on, you want to make sure it sits in contact with this first end stop. And then you're making use of the full available travel to you there. If it's not in contact, you're wasting some of the travel. You're not going to get a strong handbrake. Not that they're very strong in the first place, which is one of the reasons why this is so critical. You must make sure your handbrake lever is in contact with the first end stop before you bolt it back on, and then you get the full amount of movement available to you. There we go. If you want to just quickly have a look at this side, these are a self-adjusting handbrake mechanism on these calipers. So pumping this is actually pushing the caliper out. The caliper comes out. You use a winding tool to turn this round for the caliper to retract back inside again, for the piston to go back in. So if you wind that back in, and then when you refit the caliper onto the car, operate the handbrake a few times, let the handbrake adjust itself up to the pads. Don't press the brake pedal first, let the mechanical rather than the hydraulic mechanism line itself up. So operate the handbrake first, let this clamp in to the brake pads, and then that's it set. There's no further setting to do than that. If your piston is pumped out by way of doing this, you can use the wind back tool to screw it all the way in, or I'll show you another video where a pair of long nose pliers can actually be used to twist that back in if you don't have the proper wind back tool. Now, as you could see when we took the mechanism off the back, I didn't put the nut back on, which was one mistake. Half-inch nut. There we go. Now, although these are just 2 Allen bolts, don't think that you can use a left-hand caliper on the right side or vice versa, because there are some differences. For one, your bleed nipple is going to be in the wrong position, and the other reason is the piston is on a different thread. So one way winds in clockwise, one way winds in anti-clockwise. So they are left and right handed. Don't try and mess about with them that way. So that was just a video to explain the handbrake plate supplied on Bosch calipers is no use for Proton Gen2. You must remove that and refit your correct plate that came with the car. Unfortunately, they're not available to buy separately from Proton, so that's the way it is. I'm afraid we're stuck with reusing the old plates, but the good thing is they don't tend to wear.
I never really had a proper tool for winding these in and out. I just used a pair of pliers just to wind them, but they are quite stiff. You need a lot of pressure as well to push them back in, as well as twisty pressure. So, whoops, I invented a little tool. It's just a bit of pipe with just some holes drilled in. I think I filed them actually on the end of the grinder there. And all you do is just slot in your pliers into there, and it then gives you lots of twisty motion, and you can press at the same time. So when you screw your caliper back in, well, it's not supposed to do that, but you can do it with a bit more ease. They're quite stiff when you do them, but perfect. Really makes the job a lot easier with simple tools. Most people have a pair of pliers. Most people probably have a bit of spare pipe lying around. That is just an old cut-off of a curtain rail, so it works really well. Once again, I hope it helps the DIY mechanic with rear caliper pistons, because I would imagine a lot of them are very similar. Caliper, which I've just sanded down, cleaned up. Make sure your bleed nipple, I've got this sealed so it's going to create a vacuum if I pull the piston out. So just undo your bleed nipple a little bit. As you can see, caliper handbrake mech does work. I've had this off and cleaned it out prior, but I could never find a video on how they actually worked, so hopefully this will help. So with the bleed nipple, these wind in and out, so get some pliers and just wind the piston out. This is the offside caliper, so they have a different screw thread on each side. This is coming off clockwise. Yeah. So this is how they come out. There we go.
And it can be taken out by just ratcheting. I've seen a lot of things where people have tried to use different methods.
There we go. So you've got a thread on there, and you've got a seal in here. Now I'll just show you the seal. Right. Now there's a thread in there which that centre screws into. And there's also like a 3-tab spring-loaded locking mechanism. So this is the inside of the caliper. So it turns out that this centrepiece just unbolts here, and you just give that a tap with a mallet and it pops out. So it's pretty easy to get that out. There are a few rubber seals, but I just thought it would make a bit more sense on how these calipers, these rear calipers actually work. They're probably the same for a lot of other calipers as well, the rear ones. This centrepiece here, well, this actually spins, what I've found out now. So as you wind your piston back in to fit new pads or anything like that, as you depress your brake, obviously the piston moves. What also happens is it automatically adjusts, and you'll see if I pull this, see how it moves, it comes out. I can pull it all the way out because that spins in there. There's a bearing in the bottom of there and it spins. Hence why you have to wind it back in if you want to change to new pads. So that's really how it works. It literally just, I'll get in closer, it just pulls out and that centre spins in there. It's as simple as that. Make sure this runs freely, and it should just pull out, just like that.
This one actually is put in like a friction method, and this clip is held in there right on those tabs there where I tapped, and also right in where that clip goes on to that 3-prong type clip. So you can either, the best way to take that out is to press it out, but I tapped it out, and these are the inner workings of the mechanism, internal mechanism, and the bearing.
3 grooves, and that's where your bearing is. And it's a thrust bearing, so that when you move your handbrake cable, it moves the bearing, which in turn pushes this out.
You want to clean all that stuff up really well. I believe there's moly grease that needs to be inserted inside some of these parts, contrary to some other popular belief, but I didn't want to show you a whole bunch of things about taking nuts and bolts off and brake pads. There's thousands of those videos online here. I didn't see anything online, so I wanted to post this, and this is a particular product, and this is basically how it goes back together. And you can either use a press or tap it out with your hammer, preferably a press if you have one.
Done.
Get some pliers, take that spring out, take the centre piece out. You get some pliers. Can't quite show you there, but if you squeeze spring mount there,
got it out, and this is how you take out the screw bearing inside and the inner workings of that particular mechanism of the piston. This one's in really good shape, and there's a lock ring or circlip in there.
now to pop it back, just pop them back in. It's a bit of a pain to get these back in, but they do go. I usually use a screwdriver just to push the rear edge in, push them down. It's as simple as that. Back in, dead easy. So that's that. Then all you do, clean it out as best you can. I've had to clean out all the rubbish in here because I need to put in a new dust cap cover, which I've salvaged from the other caliper. So that'll be going in there. And there. It'll do the job. I should get a new one, but you can get a pack with all new bits, but I've used that on another car that I have. So anyways, once you've cleaned out and you're happy with everything clean in there, you just got to put the piston back in. Make sure you use clean rags, just clean everything off. As you can see, that's quite a, it's not bad for a piston, but it'll do. I think what I'll do is I'll pop this dust cover on. There you go. So there's your dust cover. Now this is the offside caliper, so just lube it up with a little bit of once you get it going, always make sure that the bleed nipple is loose, or the actual main union is off. I've got a thing in there which stops it from going in, and then your dust cover should ease in just like that, and you wind it in. These lugs have to be parallel as well because the pads sit in there. That's it, and that should be about right. Just press these in. Just be careful with these rubbers, you don't pierce anything. Perfect. And you'll find that your caliper will work. Screw that back in. And then there you have it. Working. Cleaned up. Brilliant. About £100 to buy these new, probably more actually. Hope that's helped people.